Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. This weekend is a good opportunity for us to think of all three. We're here in the Easter season. And Jesus provides for us this gospel about the vine and the branches. That we're called to be part of one great tree, the tree of life. Sometimes what can happen in faith is that faith becomes so personalised and so individualised that sometimes we become disconnected from the rest of the tree, or sometimes we refer to the rest of the body of Christ. And that's a problem. I think that's where Jesus is sort of getting at with his vine and branches analogy. We aren't separate trees. When we have our own faith in Jesus Christ, if we separate that from community, if we separate that from the bigger church, then perhaps we might be going down almost in a parallel version of faith. But Jesus says, no, we are branches of this tree, which means we're all connected. We're all receiving life from the same source, from the same roots of faith that comes from God through the person of Jesus Christ. Sometimes people say to me that they're not all that interested in hearing about the faith life of others, that they come to church just for themselves. It's true, we come to church for ourselves, but we shouldn't have a disinterest in what's happening in other people's lives. The prayers of the faithful every Sunday helps us and reminds us that faith's not just about self. We think about the needs of our world. Think about the needs of those in other parts of our world, other parts of the church. Even within our own community, we think about those who are sick, those who've died. That's because we are part of one tree. We are one vine. And if one branch is suffering, all of us feel some of that as well. And we should take a care for that. Sometimes people say they're not interested in hearing about the other sacraments that people are receiving. Next week we'll begin the journey for confirmation over the next few months for a number of our students in our schools. And that's a great thing, because every sacrament is not just for an individual, it's for the whole community. One of the things I've been trying to do over the last 18 months or so since I've been here in the parish is to try to bring together our groups in the parish, because we're all part of one vine. We're one tree, we're one church. And sometimes what can happen, and probably it's happened here in this parish as well, is that sometimes groups almost act in complete isolation of everybody else. They go off and they do their own little thing, which is it's important to have initiative, but if we have initiative that has no reference to the fact that they're part of the tree of the church, the tree of Christ, then that becomes a problem. You could almost have two parallel or multiple parallel churches happening. So we're called to be part of one vine, and we're all many branches. And so when you see somebody else, and I'm trying to encourage somebody else's faith, that's a good thing. We should take delight in that as well. In a moment we'll have a couple of families who are presenting their children for baptism and preparation for baptism in a few weeks' time. We should all take delight in this. This is a great thing, because we're all part of one vine. When someone's suffering, when someone's sick, we shouldn't say, oh, well, I'm not really interested in that, in their concerns. That's their own personal problem. We feel that as well. We are one vine. When Saul, in the first reading, became a Christian, the Christian community initially said, we don't trust you. We're afraid of you, because of you were persecuting Christians before. You were trying to kill Stephen, you were killing other people, you were arresting Christians. And the community said, no, we don't like you, Saul. We don't want you part of our church. That's what they were saying. That's what you sort of get at the very beginning of our first reading. But the community then realised this is not what Jesus talks about. He says that we are one vine. And if we're all followers of Jesus Christ, we take people through their best and also when they're worst. And that's the beauty of our faith. And so the community then listened to him. They allowed him to have a place within the community, and he was connected to that Christian community. We're then told in the first reading, Saul then goes and starts to talk to the Hellenists. The Greek people, some of a Jewish background. And these Greek people didn't like what Saul was saying, and they wanted to kill him. We're told about this. And the community didn't say, well, Saul, bad luck, you got yourself in this situation, get yourself out of it. No, they say, he's in trouble. And they got him, and they took him and kept him safe. Because they are all part of one vine, one church, one tree of life. And this is what we're called to do. To all be united together in our life, our journey, and in our ministry. Not just little individuals going completely in isolation and maybe we cross paths occasionally. No, we have a desire to look after each other and to receive the source of life from that one place, Jesus Christ. We've begun the month of May, which just began yesterday, the 1st of May. This month is a special month dedicated to Mary. It's a great time, whether you have a devotion to Mary or not, to increase devotion to Mary. Sometimes people say to me, sometimes Catholics, but often people who are not Catholics, perhaps Protestants, say, we just go straight to Jesus, we're not interested in Mary. And my response to that is, well, if you get to know a friend, and you become very friendly with one of your friends, you're going to get to know their family. You might even get to know their parents. And sometimes you can know a lot more about a person, about one of your friends, by talking to their parents. I've learnt that sometimes even here amongst our own community. I can go and talk to the mums of some of our parishioners, and sometimes I'll hear more about them than I'll hear about from them themselves. And that's a great thing. Mary will guide us to Jesus. Mary will help us to understand Jesus, and Mary will help us to understand we're part of this one family. And so we come to Mary, we honour her. We don't worship Mary. Mary's not God, but Mary's the mother of Jesus. And if Jesus is important, then his mother's important as well. And so we come to Mary. Next Sunday is Mother's Day. Do something special for your mothers, but do something special also for our Heavenly Mother. In your homes, maybe this week and over this month, maybe pray a decade of the Rosary. Pray the Hail Mary every day. Maybe if you've got a statue of Mary, have some flowers there during the month of May. Maybe drop into the church during the week and just come down and spend some time kneeling and maybe light a candle with Mary here in the church. Do something special for Mary, our mother, during this month. Yesterday was the feast day of St. Joseph the Worker. All of us are called to contribute. Sometimes we have this idea that we work, our job is the place where we get paid. Well, you might have your hourly wage or whatever your employment might be. But Joseph reminds us that work is not just about what we might do in the carpentry shop, but work is what happens at home. Work is what happens in all of our life. From the very beginning to the very end of our life, we're called to serve and to work. We're called to pray and relax as well. But all of us are called to contribute, whether we're very young or whether we've retired. Just because we're retired doesn't mean we stop working. We may have stopped working for an employer. We still work for God. We're still doing the work of God, the work of love, as we heard in the second reading. We're called to keep God's commandments, spread the love of God, the love of neighbour. So 3 things we've been thinking about today. 1, Jesus Christ has formed a vine, and we're all part of this one tree. We're all connected. We feel the sufferings of others within that vine. We all work together to help bring about the flourishing of Christ's life, of Christ's tree in the world. Let's honour our Blessed Mother, and let us all contribute in the ways that we can to the service of Christ and his church through being noble in the way we work, in the way of St. Joseph as the worker.